Yesterday we have discussed one thing, that is a request object. Okay, let me show you this one. The request object that comes into your servlet. Okay, look at here. The servlet is it is created by the server on the basis of per request from the client. So this is your client. Okay, this is your browser. Whenever the browser will send any request to the server, then this request object will create, and this request object doesn't uh, persist the value. Whenever the response get back to the client, then request object uh, forget, or you can say the delete the value that it has. So further, if any request comes, then how your server will identify that the request is coming from the same client? So for that, since we know that the HTTP protocol is stateless, so to make it stateful, we use the sessions, the session object. So a quick example to show that the session will be persist and the request will not persist if it is not containing any value. So just look at this example I'm showing you. This is one servlet, okay, and the servlet name is could be anything. So the servlet name is student home, and here one object we were getting yesterday, that is the name. So name will be passed, and then you can get the value of name, whatever the value you are passing. So let me execute this one. So I'll print the name. Here is a student name from request. Okay. So from request, that is n, and I will get the value into n. String n is equal. This is the small code snippet that you can see. So we'll pass one value into the name parameter. Just look at here. Question mark name parameter is equal any name I'm going to pass, that is, let's see, that is Daneyal. So you can see here the student name from the request is Daneyal, and we have seen that if we don't pass any value into that, then we get the value as null. It means every request is creating a new request object. That's why this object doesn't remember the previous value that you have passed. So if you want to set that the request is coming from the same client, and if you want that that the request should identify that the request is coming from the same student or same person, then what you can do, you can get, or you can create. Actually the right word is to get, because uh, the session object creation is the work of your container, your server. It is not the work of the developer. Okay, so we'll write the code actually to request dot get session. This is the way that you can get it. Okay, so whenever you write this code, then it will return one object of the HTTP session that is already created by the server. You are getting only the created sessions object. So get session, there are two methods that you can use. One is without any parameter, and second one is your boolean and then create. So if you pass true, then it will create the session, and if you don't pass any value, then it will return the previous created session object. So now I'm going to use this one because first time we are going to use this HTTP session. So I'll say that this is the first time since I don't have any session object. Then first give me this session. Now this session object will be available into the session. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to set the value into the session, right? Where this value is coming into the request by setting by the client. So I'm going to set this value into the session, and as we have already discussed that there are three scopes of the object to share the data. One is your request, second one is your session, and third one is your servlet context. So we can set the value into the session by writing the session dot set attribute. There is no different method. So here is I can write the username, the attribute. What is the value that you want to set? That is available into the end. So I want to set the value into the HTTP session. And one more thing I'll do here, when I will set the value into it, so I will write one code that if n is not empty and n is not equal to null, then set the value into the session, this one, or you can put here a curly bracket. So if n is not equal to null and n is not equal to empty, then this will set the value into the session. Now in the same page, what I'm going to do, just look at here to understand that this session is persist onto the servlet or not. So a student name from session, I will write the session here, and the value that is set into the session we can get from the session by writing the method that is session dot get attribute. Get attribute, and the name of the attribute we know that is student or username. So let's see, I'm going to pass here question mark and the one value. So just look at here, the student name from the request, that is Daneyal. Yes, fine, that is fine. The student name from the session is Daneyal because we are setting the same value from after getting the value from the request into the session. Now look at here, I'm going to delete this. So now into the request there is no name because the request will create fresh, but you can see here into the session that the value you have set is remembered by your servlet. So how do this operation, okay, how does this operation get performed? Just look at one more time this diagram. Just look at it. When a browser send any request to the servlet into the server, and this request is very first time, then session object will be created, and one memory that is into the server that will be saved into the server memory, and whatever the value that is set by this servlet into the session will be saved onto the server. And when the response will, after performing this operation, when the response will get back to the browser, this session ID will be get back with the response and saved into the browser, okay. Now after that, if any subsequent request is generated by this client, then this ID will be go with your request, and the servlet will see that if is there any ID is coming with the request, then it will look into the server memory that is there any session ID is available, and that is the same with the coming request, then it will hand over the value that you have saved into the session to the object. And after that, you can get the value from the session by calling the method session.getAttribute. So this whole process will repeat until your session is not destroyed. So when your session will be destroyed, this is one question. So session that you are using, that is your um, session ID. So this could be deleted in two ways. Number one, by your code, if you destroy this by writing the session.invalidate. Okay, by calling the method that is called this session is now invalidate by the code. So now when that code will be executed, then that session ID will be destroyed. And another one is when your browser is closed. So when your browser will close, that session ID will be destroyed because that session is non-persistent. Non-persistent means this session will be valid till your client or your browser is open. Okay. So if your browser is closed, then your session will be destroyed. So I'm going to show you that the session ID, how the session ID look like. So just look at here. So there are so many methods that you can use. Actually, this is the most important. Okay, the session ID, to get the session ID. After that, you can set the attribute and you can get the attribute. And let me show you that the session ID, what is the session ID? So I'm going to print this into system.out.println, copy and paste. And here I will print session ID. And how to get this? That is the session.getID. There is a method that you can use, session ID. So let me check that what is the session ID. So it will print onto the browser. Just look at here. That you can see the session ID is 0EB. So it is 32-bit hexadecimal value actually. Okay. So this is one session ID that is given by the server to this client. And you can say that this is one key that is saved onto the client. Whenever this client will send any request to the server, this ID will be go with your request. If you want to see that where this ID is saved into the client, you can go into it and you can find that is let's check, that is the settings, and here you can find cookies, and here you can see advanced basics. Let me open because the setting get change of this site. Okay, and site, this is the cookies and site data, and I will search for this application that is running on the local host. So I will search the local host, and is there any local host cookie? This one, local host. Just look at here. This is the local host, and this is the GetSession ID. Just look at here. Okay, and the domain name is the local host. Path is the new application. Look at here. Domain name is local host. Path is new application. Just look at here. You can find the cookie into the cookies. And what is the ID that is saved into your browser? Just look at here. 0EBBCF2. Just look at here. Is it same? Yes. So now whenever you send any request, then your request will go, if for this path from to this domain, then it will carry this session ID. So when this session ID will reach at the server location, then server will see that, okay, this request has this session ID. Let me check that this session ID is available onto the server or not. If this session ID is available, then whatever you have saved onto the server with respect to this ID, then that will be hand over to the servlet. Okay, so as I said, for every request and for every client actually, there is one session is created. So I'm going to create one. I'm going to access one more. I'm going to copy this, and there is another client. So look at this client. That is there any there is any new session ID is created or not. So I'll pass name is equal, for example, ABC. Okay, so name is ABC. Just look at here. The session ID that is created for this client is 3454. So look at here. This is the new session. Okay, so whatever you will set into it, it will not accessible by this client. Remember this point. Okay, because whenever you send any request from here, uh, uh, and whenever you send any request from this client, it will go to the server, and whatever the value is saved with respect to this ID will be handed over to this request, this client's object. Okay, look at here, ABC and ABC. So this is the way that the session actually works. So you can use this session to make the persistent request, to identify the request by the server that yes, the request is coming from the same client. To make this stateful, we use this session ID object. So just let me know. Just yes, yeah. Both are same. No, just look at it. Not same. Okay, guys. Still. Okay. Now is it fine? No. Tell me, is it fine now? Not. Same with everyone. You're not getting my voice. Else I. Okay, now it is. Okay. Otherwise, I need to restart my router, and it will take time. That's why I'm asking. Okay. So now tell me, this session is now clear that how to get the object and how to put the values. Now after that, if it is clear now, then we'll move and I'll create one example, one application that will demonstrate properly that how to use the session actually. Just tell me. Is it clear now? HTTP session, how to get the object and how to use it, how to put the value into it. Okay, so just look at the scenario that I want to create, and actually this scenario works for every application. Okay, what is that scenario? Just look at here. Since you are using one application, okay, I can take one example for this, and the example is, let's suppose I use application that is hackerrank.com. This is okay. Now when you open it, then it asks the login, so you click on it. You can design this page, okay, and after that you provide your credentials. Just look at here. And here, when I provide the credentials, I get logged in. Just wait, it will open. It is not loading properly. Okay, now it gets logged in. Now look at here. If any user gets logged in into your application, that is web application, so within same client, no other user should be logged in. Okay, so this can create problem. So this is why we stop to logged in more than one user at a time into the same client. Just look at here. If I open another browser and I type only the hackerrank.com, that is application, then it will not ask me again to get login. Why? Because I am already logged into this application. So even the login page will not be visible. If you try to get onto the login page, it will not come again until you are not logged out. Okay. So when I will log out, then you can see the login screen and login option will be appear. So how does this application and the browser maintains? Just look at here. If I reload it, then you can see here I will be logged out. Okay, so this is the way that we maintain that the server and the client. The server should remember that this user is already logged in, this client is already logged in, so we are not going to show the login page again to get logged in by the another user. So I'm going to create the same scenario. Okay, if the one user is logged in, then we will not show the login button and the login page. And if user wants to access the login page, then it will not be accessible because the user is already logged in. So just look at the code and the thing. So for that, what I'm going to do, since this is a new type of the application, so I will create very a small a new project. Sorry, and in that we'll demonstrate the session. And if you understand this session, then you can understand all the three very easily. So session demo, next, and I will use the 5 because maybe I will configure something. Just look at it. So this is the index page, that is index.jsp. You can write the index.html as well. So I will use index dot this one. So write the center, and I will do one thing more. I'll copy and paste. This will save my time. So from previous application, I'm going to copy the index page and paste it here. Close this one, save, run this. So this will execute. Not into this browser, into my Chrome. Run this file. So now this page is created. Again, what I'm going to do, I'm going to create one servlet that will verify the user, and we have already write that code. So this is also will not take time. servlet, and I will write like login validate servlet. This will validate the login of the user, and I will put into com.lari. Next, finish. And to do this, we have already written one code that will verify the user. So this is the username and password. Copy it. You can see here the process request, so I can change into do post. And here I will delete this one. I don't need this. Even this code stuff is also not required. Here I will paste. So it will give you the username and password. After that, you will connect to the database, prepare the statement if user.next. Paste. Okay. And one more thing, that is catch. After try, I will write the catch and exception E, and you can write how.println E. And here you will pass the URL and the user and the password. So we have already done this into the previous example so far. So I'll copy one more time. Then you can say that we can do the same into the previous application, but that application is now have mix of the things. That's why I'm creating the separate application. Paste, servlet context, and this one. No, that's done. We have done the login validate servlet. So username and password, accordingly, you will validate the user. And since this is the new application, one more time, I'm repeating the same step. Go to the properties, use the library, add the jar file into your library. That is the connector. So if user is validate, I'm not asking that user is admin or user is a simple user. I'm just taking example that user is valid user. So this will be your application to verify the user. After that, what we want to do is it should be moved onto the home page. Okay, so for that we have already created one home page. So here the scenario will get changed. Here is another JSP page, that is home.jsp. Finish it. Hello world home, to identify that is the home.jsp. And now we are going to create the HTTP session. Actually not create, we are going to get the HTTP session object. HTTP session, and we have already seen that how to get this. That is the request.getSession, and pass one value that is true. Now tell me, we can say that if user is valid, then this code will be executed. Otherwise, what happened? This else part will execute. Fine. So HTTP session object we are getting, and we can set what we can set session.set attribute, and I'm going to create the user name as attribute, and the name that is coming from the request. And we have already take that value into the user. Just look at here, get parameter user. So that name will be set into the attribute. So when this attribute will be set, this is the question. So simple answer is when the user is verified. then this value will be set into the session. Fine. And after that, response I will send, response dot send a redirect, okay, to the home dot JSP page. Got it? And if user is not a valid user, then what we'll do, we'll send the response to the client and say that your username or password is incorrect. So you can do this by writing only the response, Control C, Control V, response dot send redirect to the index page. Now execute the code. So I hope you understand the scenario. That is uname, password, we are getting into the username. I am setting the wrong value. This is the right value. This is coming from the client. Yeah. So I'll set the name as admin and it is super. So just, okay, one more time, copy and paste. So this is the login servlet. Login servlet. Login validate. This is the servlet which will execute after the login. So login validate servlet, let me copy this name and paste here. Now a quick recap. This is your form in which user will provide the data, the name and the password. After that, it will go into the login validate servlet. There, this servlet will get those data that is coming from the request. After that, it will establish the connection and it will validate the user. If the user is valid, then we'll get the session, and after that we'll put the value into the session object and move to the home page. Else it will get back to the index.jsp. So okay, reload. That is admin. The password is this. So this is the home and user is valid user. Now from here, look at this very carefully. When this home page should be accessible, if it is an application, so when this home page should be accessible. So this home page should be accessible if the user is valid user. Why? Because after the validation, we are redirecting user to the home page. It means some value that is, some resources that is available for the user, but the user is valid then. Okay, you have created one menu here in which you have written that is get all records from the server or get all records. So if user is not valid, then user cannot access your resources from the server, or you means user cannot perform anything. So look at here, if I copy it, and if I paste into another browser, then again you can see this page is accessible. But this should not be happen if it is an application in which you are saying if the user is valid, then home page should be accessible. So how to check that if user is valid, then this page should be accessible, because URL can be copied by any user or any client. Okay, so URL can be seen by any person, and that URL can be saved by any person. So suppose this URL I have saved and I go onto my PC and I write this URL and wants to get access this page, but I'm not going through the validation process. So this should not be accessible. Okay, so how to maintain this, that this page should be accessible after the validation. Okay, this resource is valid to this resource is accessible to only the valid user. So how to do this? Just look at here. And one more thing, I'm going to introduce a new thing to you. And yesterday I told you one thing. If you have remembered, JSP is also a servlet. Have you remembered? JSP is also a servlet. So for now, just remember this point because I'm going to write some code here. So to write the Java code onto the JSP, okay, what we use this tag. This is the tag open with less than and mod symbol and close with mod and greater than symbol. This is called a tag where you can write the Java code onto the JSP. Got it? Tell me. For now, just remember this. This is the place where you can write your Java code. Got it? Onto the JSP, not onto the HTML. Okay, so for this application, I'm using this one. And how to use it? And if you have remember, yesterday I have already shown you that is the session object is by default available into the JSP, onto the JSP by the name of session. Just look at here. You don't need to get it by writing HttpSession and request.getSession. By default, onto the JSP, session is available by the name of session. Just make a note of it. So this is available onto the JSP. What I need to do is session.getAttribute. Okay, what is the attribute that I'm setting onto the servlet? I'm setting the attribute that is username. So check on to the home page sorry, where is this one? I'm going to copy, paste. Okay, check if session.getAttribute is not null. If session.getAttribute is not null, and when you will get it is not null, you will get not null if this page, this home, the request is coming after processing this part. If this part is not happening in from the client, then this value will be not set by your session. Got it? So it means if the user is valid, then session will set this attribute into the session object, that is the username. If this process is not happening, okay, then this attribute will not set into the session. So we can check that if the session has the attribute username, and if this is not null, it means this is coming from this process. And if it is equal to null, if it is equal to null, then the user is not coming from the validation process. So you can means this is not only the example, I'm just explaining the use of the session. Okay, so we can do this response dot send a redirect. Response is also available here. So response dot send redirect to where? To index.jsp. This one. Got it? Now come to this client and now reload this page. Just look at here. It is a new client. So just tell me, is this client is going through the validation process? No. This client is accessing home.jsp direct. So if I reload it, just look at here, this page is not opening. So if I use, this is the client which goes from the validation process. So if this client access this page in any tab, just look at here, it can access the home page. But if this page is accessible by the new client direct, and since that client is not going through the validation, so you can see here it will show the login page. So this is the way that your server identify that the request is coming from the same client or not. Got it? Again, one more thing I'll just going to show you. This is the home page and this is the new tab. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this home URL, okay, and paste here and access the index.jsp or the login.jsp. If I hit the enter, okay, that is the local host, spelling mistake. Okay, so now login page is coming here. On this application, on this tab, admin was getting login. Remember, if you have forget, then just one thing I can do here, I can print welcome note and I can print the value from this object. So as I told you, this is for the Java. Okay, so I can write out dot print, and here I can write this one. This, just look at here. So welcome home admin. Now another user, that is Daneyal. And what is the password of this? I guess new password was that. Just look at it. So can you write this kind of the code in which one client can be logged in by multiple user onto the same application? So this could be a problem because suppose you are creating a shopping cart and on this page this admin is accessing your shopping cart onto the another tab, this user is accessing the same application. So if this user add the value into the session, then actually it will add into this user also. So this should not be happen, means the login page should not be coming for the new user if user is already logged in. This is one scenario. Then you can ask that, sir, in Gmail, one user in one client, more than one user can be logged in. So that is another scenario. So I'm just taking one example here. So what I'm going to do here, again, I'll write one small piece of the Java code where I will check if session dot get attribute, and attribute is username. If you have remember, just look at here. This is the session name. Username is not equal to null. It means the username is already set and you are trying to access this page. Then what will I do? I will write response dot send redirect to home dot JSP. Now just look at it. This page is this one. I'm going to write index dot JSP. Just look at it. Now it goes to home dot JSP. So if any user is logged in, then login page will not appear until your session is not destroyed or you are not changed the value of the username or you are not invalidate that. Okay, so one more time, just look at here, the code and the execution. The browser has been closed, session has been destroyed. So now login page is opening. Again, login, and the user is logged in. Now, if I copy it into another tab, definitely it will open because user is logged in. And I want to log in a new user into this page, and we know the URL at index.jsp. But whenever I'll try to access the login page, you can see here the login page will not appear because already one user has logged in my application and one user is logged in through this client. And suppose this is the page and you want to access through another client, and since this client is not going through this one. So now look at here, the index page is opening. Got it? Now tell me, is it clear? So this is the HTTP session that you can use now. How to logged out and how to invalidate. So there are so many things that you can do here. If you have experienced that sometime what happened, few web applications says that if you are at this page, this is the page, and you are not performing any action for a certain time, then you will see if you click anywhere into your application, then uh, it will say you that please log in, your session has been expired. If you have remembered this, if you have experienced this kind of the thing. So this kind of the thing happens most of the time with the bank application. If you have opened the bank application and you are using that application, but your page is idle state for a couple of minutes or 3 minutes, 4 minutes, and if you are trying to perform some operation, then it will say that your session has been expired, then please log in to continue. So this can be done by one method. Suppose, and if you want this should be on every page, then you can write that. So here you can write that is session dot set max inactive interval, and this inactive interval, that is integer, is actually a time, and the time is in second. So if your page is inactive for 10 seconds, then your session will be destroyed. Okay, so just look at here. This is the page. Now count it. 10 seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So now this page is inactive till 10 seconds. Now if I refresh it, then see that what happened. If I refresh it, just look at here. The session has been destroyed. Whatever the value you have put it into your session, that will be vanished, and you go back to the index page and it says that please log in. This is one way. If you want that, if your user is onto the page and if it is not using that page for a certain time, then you can write this code. Another thing that you can write is by logout, by performing the logout operation. So one small piece of the code I will write here. Just look at here. I will write here and this is say logout. Look at here, first login. And one thing, I'll comment this line, because if it 10 seconds, then every time your session will be destroyed. So if this is the user clicks on logout, then user session should be invalidate, and after that it will go back to the index or login page. So here what I'm going to do, I'm going to create one servlet. Okay, look at here, into it one servlet here, and that servlet name is logout servlet. Next and finish. And there are so many things, but I don't want this one. First, I'll get the session, HTTP session here. HTTP session is equal request dot get session. Okay, if I'll check one more thing, if session is not equal to null, definitely it won't be, but look at it. And session dot invalidate, call a method invalidate, and after that session is equal to null, I'll assign it, and after that response dot send a redirect to the login page, index.jsp. Fine. And this logout will invalidate your session, and it will go back to index.jsp. If you want that, you want to show that you are successfully logged out, then you can write that value and you can print over here, but I will show that thing into the JSP. Okay, so look at here, and if I click on logout, okay, where is home? This one, and this is the log out servlet. I guess I have written the right spelling. Let me copy and paste. Paste. Click on the logout. So now your session has been expired, and if I want to access the home.jsp, let me check that is it accessible or not. No. Why? Because the current logged in user session has been invalidated by calling the logout, and you are now redirected to this page. Clear? Good. Another thing is hidden form field. Okay, what is hidden form field? Actually, it's an element of a form. It is a part of the form, but it is not visible to the user. What we do, we write the code into the background and we put something into the form, and whenever the user send any request, that hidden form field, that field will be go into every request. And if I say something to relate it, okay, only to relate, suppose I'm login into the application, just look at here. Okay, now if I further send a request to the server, then what happened? Whenever the request is going from this client to the server, one thing is going with your request that is hidden, that is not visible to the user. Okay, that is your session ID, and I have already shown you where it is saved. Okay, so we can relate that, we can write that kind of thing by ourselves, and we can put those values into our form. Whenever that form will be sent and submit to the server, that field will be go with your request. So that is called a hidden form field. A hidden form field. So how to use it? Okay, I'm going to write one piece of the code, and I just try to explain the thing. Okay, just look at here. Wait. This is the home page. We have created already this one. This is the home page, and there is one link is available which says show me all the user, or we can say this is the home page, and it is by default it will show you all the users. It will show you all the users, or we can create another link so that will more useful. So here I'm going to write show all users. So come here and log in by writing something. So here is one link that is show all users, and another is called logout. So when I click on it, it will show me all the users record that is saved into my application. Okay. So for that, to get all the records from the server, what you need to do is you need to create the selection method, a query, and after that you can print all the values. So for that, I'll create one more servlet, and for each operation, for each separate operation, we should have a different servlets. This is a right way to create. So I'm going to create, I'm going to get the values from the database. So I will write show all users record servlet. Why I am suffix servlet every time? Because we can identify that this is a servlet, not a simple class. So show all users record servlet. This is the servlet which will call whenever you will click on this link. Fine. And again, I'll write the same code. If user is not validated, then this page should not be accessible. So how to write that code? I will paste here if session.getAttribute. Then first of all, I'll get this HTTP session because this is a servlet. So HTTP session and object name is equal to request.getSession. If the user is valid, then fine, otherwise it will go to the index page and log in, and after that he or she can see all the records, because I don't want to show all the records for unauthorized user. Again, I will write the same set of the code. Servlet context, I will get driver manager connection con. So you will write all the things, all the stuff here, and I'll copy and paste only. So this will save my time. And here paste. Okay. And as we know that this line of the code will throw an exception. So for that, I will make a catch exception and E, and I'll print the exception out.print and then E, this one. Now what? Okay, This is. And since this is the selection type of the query, so we can create a small statement object. The statement, I will not use the prepared statement. Statement stmt empty con dot create a statement, and I'll delete this statement. Result set, definitely will get the result set because this is the selection type of the query, is equal stmt dot execute query, and the query is select, okay, select login ID. Login, let me check what is the name of the field. I forget that value. This is password, or and here new DB master. Okay, login ID. Okay, fine. So I'll write login ID from login master. Fine. This is. So result set rs stmt dot execute query, select login ID from login master. So this is the rs, and we can we are getting only the login ID. We can get all the record, but according to the scenario, I'm writing this one while rs dot as next sorry, next method. Then it will print the value. So I'll cut it from here, and within body I'll paste it, and out dot print the value rs dot get a string column number 1. Okay, let's see that what is the output. So show all users. So look at here. User is admin, user is Daneyal, user is Induja, Progress Apps, user 1 and user 2. Okay. Now, what I need to do is I need to perform some operation from here. And this is just to demonstrate. Okay, this is to understand that the hidden form field I'm going to show you. So what I can do is I can create one table. Okay, let me create this one. Copy, paste. This will be one table. Here is your, sorry, this one. Table is closed, and here I will create one tr, one td close plus this td and this tr. Close it. So let's see. Here td, this, and it is r. So this will look like this one. I can write one more thing, that is the border is equal to 1. Let me check that it is working. No. Yes. So this is, so these are the value that is available. And now another column I'm going to create that is, that asks, that perform some operations. So what is that, those operations? What are these things? So I can write out.println one more, and this will be into the same tr, and it will create another td with the operation name. Okay, with the operation name input type is equal button. I'm writing only button right now. Button value is equal delete this record. This is the way. So now look at here. So as you can see on every record, you can find that this value should be deleted. Delete, 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 delete. Fine. So whenever you click on this button, then this value should be deleted. You can perform this operation in either way, but other way also. But I'm explaining only the hidden form field that will go into your request, but it is not showing. It is not showing to the user. So here it is the button. So what I'm going to change it to, I'm writing it as submit it, and it will send your request to a form, td, and here is your form, where you will perform this operation, that is the deletion. So it means when you click on it, then the username should also go with your request. Okay, so it means you have to send the value of this user. Okay, so how to do this? How to send any value? So we send a value by input. We write the type and copy input type and copy. Input type text. If I write, and what is the value that you want to send? I want to send the value that is the value of this one. So now look at the page. This is, so when I'll click on this delete, then this admin should go with your request, but this should not be visible to the user because it is going with your request, but it is not showing. I don't want to show this is as the thing that is going with your request. So what will I do? I will write here, in place of input type text, I will write hidden. Now look at the thing. Now you can see here is, whenever I click on this delete, your request will go onto the server for performing the deletion operation, but it will also carry one more thing, that is this value. And where it will carry? It will carry into the request. And why it is not showing? Because it is hidden. If you want to see this, then you can see by this one. That is, every hidden field has a value. Just look at here. Okay, so if I click on submit, If I click on submit, definitely my request will go into the servlet. So just look at here, the value is here, and as we know, we have to create the name attribute also. So here is user name. Now if I click on it, just look at here, if I click on it, you can see that username is user into going into your request. Okay, if I write like this, where is like asterisk? So just look at here, I'm printing the 2, not 2, it is 3. Just look at here, it is saying that the role of this every user, and I want to delete this student. And what is the name of, because this student can be deleted by unique ID, so this should be going to your request, and I don't want to show the unique ID to the user, so I can make the hidden form field and it will go into your request. So what we do actually in our application, whenever we send any request and we want to maintain the session, so we set some value into every request, every form, and that value will be unique session ID, you can say. And whenever you send in the request, then that ID will be go into your request, and every time we'll get that ID onto the server, we'll check, and after that we will perform the operation. Now we are not performing, we are not writing any action into the form. Just look at it. So if you don't mention the action, just look at and understand this. If you don't mention the action name into it, then by default, the by default action will be same as the page name. Okay, the URL that you have written. So since I am not mentioning the action, then the action is by default show all users record servlet. So whenever you send any request, just look at here, it is going to onto the same servlet. You can see here onto the same servlet. Just look at it. So if you don't mention the action, then it is the same URL on which it is appearing. So if you want to perform the operation onto the same servlet, that if I click on it, then this operation should be performed here, then you can write the code onto the same servlet also. So Meng, you were asking that how to perform the operation onto the same thing. Then you can do this by sending the request onto the same servlet, but you need to write some code to identify that the request is coming from clicking on it or by coming from any external request. That is, we can call that servlet by clicking on show all user also, or we can call this servlet by clicking on delete also. So how will you differentiate that? The request is coming by clicking on the delete or by clicking on that link. You need to write some code to separate the thing. So how will you identify that the code, the request is coming from the same page? You can do this by, I'm going to write the name attribute for the button also, that is btn. Okay, so look at here. If I click on it, that you can see the btn is also coming. Btn is also coming. It means I'm clicking on it, then it is going onto the same servlet. So we can do one thing, that is here, if btn, okay, sorry, by clicking on that, so I will get that value by get parameter, and the parameter name I am right, I have written that is btn. If btn is not equal to null, it means you are calling this servlet by clicking on the btn. Then this piece of the code should be executed. And what is the code you want to execute? It's up to you. So we want to delete this one. So I will write that one more time. I will create one object. So here, after performing this operation, I will write rs.close, and after that I will write stmt.close. I will create another object of the prepared statement. Prepared statement pst is equal con dot prepare, I guess con dot prepare statement, and the query is delete from the table name, that is login master, where the login ID is equal question mark. Okay, the value that is coming from the request I'll set here. So I will write pst dot set a string at index number 1, the value that is coming from the request dot get parameter, and the value that is coming into the hidden form field, and the name of that parameter is username. So copy and here paste, and after that integer status is equal pst dot execute update. Definitely we'll call the execute update because it is not a query of the selection type. And if what? And if status is greater than 0, it means the record has been deleted successfully. So we can show one message out.println, okay, record deleted successfully. And if this is not happening, then we can say that record deletion failed, or we can write anything else, that is record not found, to delete. Okay, so let's see. So now you can see that record deleted successfully, that is this one. So now if I do this, then it says that record is not found because this record is not available. So if you want to perform any operation and you want to send some value by submitting the form, you can make and you don't want to show to the user, and every time you want to send that value by the form with the hidden, then you can write the hidden form fields. Yes, tell me, is it clear? And you can do this onto the same servlet, but you need to write some piece of the code to maintain it, because whenever the request is coming, for example, suppose if I am at the page home.jsp, fine, and if I go onto this show all user, so definitely this operation should not be performed. Okay, why? Until will not click on this button, then this operation should not be performed. Yes, tell me. Still, Hinduja? I was saying that if you come from this page onto the show all user records, then the delete operation should not be performed. This operation should be performed on clicking on the delete button. And definitely to perform the deletion, you need to send the user ID also. So whenever you click on it, then it will get performed. So when a request, so if request is coming from outer side, not coming from the same servlet, then this piece of the code will not execute, because we are uh, controlling this piece of the code by writing if the parameter btn is not null, then this piece of the code should run. And we can okay, fine. So I hope the whole example is clear, and I have created one scenario, one demo scenario to illustrate and to demonstrate these themes. Whenever you go for any application writing, you can take the references of these piece of the code. So these are the scenarios and according to the code. So any query, any doubt, any question? No, good. So okay, fine. That's all for today. And in next session, we'll see some more thing. And after that, we'll jump into the JSP.